In this video today, we're going to look at how we can use Dolby Atmos in game development. Now, most of the subscribers of this channel came through the series that I did on game audio, where I showed you how to use Audio Kinetic Wise and Unity in order to create games or create audio for games. And most of the people who are subscribed to my Discord server share an interest in Dolby Atmos, so I thought it might make sense to combine those two topics and talk about Dolby Atmos in game development. But before I do that, first of all, hello everybody. My name is Michael Wagner. I teach at the Antoinette Westphal College of Media Arts and Design at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And on this channel, I talk about digital media, game design, and spatial audio. And if any of those topics interest you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel or to join my Discord server. Invite link is in the description below. Now, with that being said, I probably need to clarify one thing, because in some of the previous videos, I expressed some criticism about the use of Dolby Atmos in game design. Reason being that games by themselves are object-based. So if you're doing game development and if you're creating any audio objects, these objects are already objects. And the question is whether or not it is useful to have an object-based audio format on top of an object-based development environment. Now, the one thing, though, that I need to point out is that it is so easy to implement Dolby Atmos in a game engine with the help of Audio Kinetic Wise that, kind of even if you are kind of like me, a little bit critical about the utility of Dolby Atmos in game design, there's just no reason not to do that. And that's what we're going to do today. So let's get right into how to use Dolby Atmos in Audio Kinetic Wise. Now, the way I'm going to do that today is by creating a very simple project with Audio Kinetic Wise. And we're going to stay completely within Wise today. We're going to only use two sounds, and I'm going to use these two sounds in order to demonstrate the spatialization capabilities of Audio Kinetic Wise. Now, the version that you need in order for that to work is version 2021.1. The version that I'm going to work with is 2021.1.7, which is the latest version at the time of this recording. So let's just create a new project, and let's call that project test. And let's select none of the assets. We actually don't need any of those. And it will come back with a license manager. We are fine with a free license, so let's just click that away. Now, if you're new to Audio Kinetic Wise, you might find the interface slightly daunting. That is because this is such a powerful software that can do so many different things. So if this is the first time you're seeing Wise, I would advise you to go back and watch my tutorial series on game audio, where I'm going to demonstrate how to use Audio Kinetic Wise in connection with Unity. And there you can find all the information that you need in order to get started with Audio Kinetic Wise. But for this particular video, I'm assuming that you have some understanding of Audio Kinetic Wise, that these things are not completely new to you, and that you have at least know essentially how to drop in sounds into Audio Kinetic Wise and how to do some basic routing within Audio Kinetic Wise. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into the audio tab, and we're going to load a couple of sounds, and I'm going to put them into the default work unit of the actor mixer hierarchy. So let's just import some audio files. Now, the audio files that I'm going to use are from the Sonis Game Developers Collection. That's also the bundle that I used in my tutorial series. I'm going to leave a link to that bundle in the description below. The nice thing about that is it's completely free. It is free not only for non-commercial use, it's actually also free for commercial use, which is really nice. And the two sounds that I'm going to use are essentially a synth texture and an effect. And let's just load them and play them so that we have an understanding of what's happening. We're going to load them as objects, as sound effects objects. And so here they are. And I probably need to put on my headphones. So let's just have a listen. Now, the first one is a little bit loud, so I need to turn it down a bit. So let's just turn it down 60 dB, and let's play it. That's the first one. And the second one is a ghost impact effect. And let's turn it down as well, maybe to 3 dB. Now, in order to demonstrate how Wise reacts with multiple objects, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an event that plays both sounds simultaneously. So let's just create an event here, a play event that plays the first sound. Let's call that event test. And then let's drop the second sound in here as well. So this is now playing both sounds simultaneously. So if I'm going to the events tab, and here under the test section, so I have the transport control for the test event. If I now play that, I should hear both sounds simultaneously. Now, the way this is now working in Audio Kinetic Wise, and this is something that actually has been changed not that long ago, is that all the audio is routed into the standard system audio device. And this system device is something that you can access through the audio tab. So let's double click here and let's open that. And if I'm essentially playing this event, and actually it's okay, I'm just playing the one effect. I essentially see in the main mix what is coming through to the audio device. Now, you already see that this audio device has a couple of different meters here. There's a main mix meter, there's a pass-through meter, and there's an object meter. And these two other meters, pass-through and objects, will become important once we are starting to talk about spatialized audio. Now, in principle, if you want to enable spatialized audio and Audio Kinetic Wise, this is actually really, really simple to do. If you take the system device and if you go into the system device settings, what we have here, you will see that there is one tick box here, which is called Allow 3D Audio. And all we really need to do is tick that box. And as soon as we have ticked that box, Audio Kinetic Wise will automatically make sure that that the possibilities are included in the build that this is played on a spatialized audio device. So if the gamer out there has a system that allows 3D audio, then essentially the game will be able to play the 3D audio. Now, the problem is that we not only want the final game to be actually kind of capable of playing spatialized audio, we also want our system on which we are developing here be capable of playing 3D audio and spatialized audio. And this is something that we see here in the device info. That is the current device info of the device that I'm currently using. And as I can see, 3D audio is not active. And the reason it is not active because my system as it stands right now is not set up to render spatialized sound. So the first thing I need to do is I need to enable spatialized sound on my Windows system, and that is something that you need to do through the Windows settings. Now I'm going to do that here on Windows 11. If you are on Windows 10, things look slightly different, and if you're on Mac, it looks all different altogether. I might do some video in the future about that, but for now we are on Windows 11. And in Windows 11, you go to the sound settings, and in the sound settings, you go to the device that is currently active or that you want to use in connection with Wise. And for me, this is Voicemeter. I'm using Voicemeter as a mixing tool to mix all the sounds together that essentially are then recorded for these videos. So whatever the device you're using is, that's where you want to go. And let's click on this little arrow here. And if you go down to the settings, we see under spatial sound that the type of spatial sound is currently set to off. And we need to enable that. Now, there are two options that we have. If you're working with Dolby, or you have been working with Dolby Atmos, you would generally see two options here. The first one is Windows Sonic. That is the one that comes with Windows. Everybody has that. And the second one is an option that many of you will see because you guys have Dolby Access installed. As soon as you have Dolby Access installed, it will give you this additional option of Dolby Atmos for headphones. And we will come back to that later. It's not as nice as Windows Sonic, interestingly enough. So Windows Sonic is actually a little bit more flexible for us. So we're going to first kind of select Windows Sonic. And as soon as I've selected Windows Sonic, I see that here 3D Audio Active has turned to yes. So now I have 3D Audio Active, and I also have the pass-through active. Now, so what's the difference between the main mix and the pass-through mix? Well, first of all, we also see that the main mix is now set to 7.1.4. That is the standard channel configuration for Dolby Atmos. So it's now a 12-channel main mix. And the pass-through mix is a stereo mix. And the pass-through mix really is the headlocked mix. So everything that is not spatialized goes to left and right channel without any additional rendering. So for example, if you have certain music that needs to be played and you don't want to spatialize that in any way, you would send that directly to your left and right speaker or the left and right speaker of your headphones. And that is done through the pass-through mix. And the nice thing about Audio Kinetic Wise is that it intelligently detects what mix it's supposed to be sending information into. So for example, the current sound effects that we have are not yet spatialized. So I just put them in without enabling spatialization. So if I'm now playing, for example, this scary ghost effect, I just need to make that transport control visible. I will actually see that that is passed through to the pass-through mix. And that is because currently this is not yet spatialized. If I want to spatialize it, let's just click that away. I would have to go to the settings of this sound and go into the positioning tab. And in the positioning tab, I would have to enable spatialization in the listener relative routing section. So I can, either one is fine. I'm just going to enable position information. And as soon as I enable position information, let's just open up the system device again. If I play that sound again, it is now routed to the main mix. So Audio Kinetic Wise intelligently knows if something has to be sent through the main mix because it is positioned in a spatial environment, or if it's something that is sent to the pass-through mix because it is headlocked to my left and right speakers. Now, currently I have one of these two effects spatialized, the other one is not spatialized. So if I go back to the event and just play the event, so let's just open up the transport control for the test event. If I'm now playing both simultaneously, I actually see that one of them goes through pass-through and the other one through the main mix, because one of them is spatialized, the other one is not yet spatialized. So let's stop that. Let's change that. So the one that has not yet been spatialized was this synth texture. So let's just click on that synth texture, and I'm going to click that away again. And in the positioning tab, I'm now also going to enable 3D spatialization for the second sound. So let's just use position. That's fine. And let's see what's changing. So let's open up our system device again, and let's go into the events tab and make sure that the transport control that we have is the test event. And now essentially both these sounds are routed into the main mix because both of them are now spatialized. So there's sort of the difference between the spatialized portion of the mix and the non-spatialized portion of the mix, or headlocked portion of the mix. But there's a third section here, and these are the objects, and this is essentially where it gets really interesting. Now, before I continue, I probably need to point out that this is an interesting point where we need to talk about what objects actually are. And the problem really here is that we have two different types, or the confusion, let's call it that way, is that we now have two different types of objects. On one hand, we have the objects in the game. So essentially, if you put a sound source into the game, it becomes a game object, and therefore an object-based audio within the game. And then we have the objects that are rendered at the endpoint, meaning at the audio device that is rendering the final audio. And those are the objects that you would have, for example, in a Dolby Atmos setup. So there are two different types of objects. Now, what Audio Kinetic Wise allows you to do is it allows you now kind of to pass the game objects through to the audio objects in the endpoint renderer. And that's actually one thing that is very neat and very easy to do. And actually, once again, Audio Kinetic Wise does this intelligently, and that's essentially what we're going to take advantage of. I can also select that a game object is not passed through to the objects in the endpoint renderer. It's actually going to be passed through to the main mix, and I'm going to show you that a little bit later as well. So I essentially have also some option to force an object to be rendered within the game and not within the audio renderer. Now, the first thing I need to make sure is that I actually have access to objects. As you can see, there is a number here that shows me the number of available system audio objects, and that unfortunately currently is 0. Now, why is that the case? Now, the thing is that these audio objects that are provided by the operating system, in this particular case it is Windows Sonic, the spatialization within Windows 11, can only be requested once. So if you have multiple applications requesting audio objects, only one of them will be actually able to get them. And that essentially means that if you have Wise open and you access all these audio objects, you cannot have access to these audio objects from, for example, a game build that you're running on the site that is not connected to Wise. And for that purpose, Wise by default disables access to the audio objects from within the interface of Wise. So we may need to manually enable that. And to do that, it's very straightforward. So we go into the audio settings, the authoring audio preferences. And in the audio authoring preferences, we have this one little tick box here, which says enable system audio objects. And if I click that, what essentially is happening is that the Wwise is instructed that the Wwise editor should now request audio objects, and that only works if there's no game connected, but essentially it will essentially take possession of those audio objects and make them available for me to work within the editor of Wwise. So let's click OK. As soon as I click OK, the number of available system audio objects will actually increase. So let's just click OK here. And we will see now we have 111 audio objects available. Now, as I said before, Audio Kinetic Wwise is actually intelligent and knows how to route the system or how to route the audio most appropriately. We now have two sounds in our little project, and both sounds are spatialized sounds. So what Wwise will kind of look at is if that's something that it can send as an audio object to the audio renderer. And if it can, it will actually do that. So let's just have a check. So let's just play one of them. Once again, let's play the scary ghost impact effect here. Let's just make sure that the transport control is correct one. So if I'm playing that now, I essentially see that Audio Kinetic Wwise understood that this is a spatialized audio object and sends it on to an audio object in the spatialized audio endpoint renderer, right? So that essentially means that instead of rendering it within the game or rendering within the Audio Kinetic audio engine, it's actually now passing on not only the audio, but also all the positioning data from the game into the endpoint renderer. So for example, Dolby Atmos renderer, and does all the rendering in this audio renderer. Now, this has advantages and disadvantages. One of the things that obviously is something that people are excited about is the quality of a Dolby Atmos renderer. So what you can now do is you can have full access to the full quality that you're getting from the Dolby Atmos renderer. But essentially, it's just something that you need to be aware that this is now a completely different way this audio object is rendered. It's no longer rendered within the game. It's now rendered within the endpoint device that is rendering the audio. Now, I have multiple objects in my system. So if I now play the event, which should play two audio objects, and once again, Audio Kinetic Wwise should be intelligent enough to understand that both of these sounds are objects and sending them onto audio objects within the renderer. And so if I'm playing that now, I will actually see that I have 4 objects here. Why do I have 4 objects? Well, these are 2 sounds. Both sounds are stereo, so there's a left and a right channel. And if you watched all the videos that I did about object-based audio, you know that the objects in an object-based audio environment are all mono. So a stereo sound essentially creates 2 objects, and that essentially means these 2 sounds create 4 objects. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that these objects are allocated dynamically. So if I play this sound once and then one more time, you will actually see that the number of objects changes, and it's reallocating these objects depending on what is currently played. So if I'm playing it once, I have 4 objects. If I'm playing it a second time, it's 8, and it's going to go back to 6 and then 4 until the longer sound has been stopped. Let's just wait. And gone. And that essentially means that the system dynamically allocates these objects. And that's actually really nice because we have 111 objects available. And in all likelihood, in a game, you will never have more than 111 sounds playing simultaneously. And that essentially means that you can actually get away with just using the objects in an object-based environment. Now, what happens if I, for example, have more than 111 sounds that are playing? Well, essentially, what Audio Kinetic Wwise is going to do is it's going to, once it reaches that maximum level, any additional object is no longer sent on, obviously, to an object because there is no more objects available. What it's going to do is it's going to gracefully downgrade and send it on to the main mix. So any object that goes beyond the number of available system audio objects will be rendered at the game level and essentially sent through the main mix. And in the same way, any audio object that is not spatialized, so if you have anything where there's no spatialization, or if it is mixed with other things that are not spatialized, as soon as Wwise understands that this is no longer a singular audio object. That is actually something that that happened either through mixing or through essentially kind of taking away the spatialization. It will send it either through the main mix or the pass-through mix, whatever is more appropriate. Now, let's say I have a certain object and I would actually like to force that object to be sent to the main mix instead of to an object. That can be, for example, if you want to have certain objects within your game that are part of your ambience and you want to have an ambient mix, and that ambient mix is sent to the main mix and not really kind of treated as separate audio objects, you can do that. Now, how do we go about that? Well, the first thing we need to do for that purpose is we need to go into the master mixer hierarchy, and in the master audio bus, so let me just click that away again. In the master audio bus, what we need to do is we need to create a sub bus. So let's create a new child. Let's create a new audio bus and let's call it audio bus ambient. And what we want to do is we want this ambient sound not to be sent to objects. We want to force it to be sent into the main mix. The way we can do that is by going to the general settings and go into the bus configuration. And in the bus configuration, we essentially select, instead of same as parent, same as main mix. Now, I can also force the audio into the pass-through mix, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to force it into the main mix. And that essentially means anything that is routed now into this ambient bus will be routed into the main mix instead of into an object. So if I'm going, for example, let's take the synth texture, because that's a little bit more of an ambient one, and let's route that instead of into the master audio bus into this ambient bus. And then let's play that again. So once again, let's go to the test that is still here, and let's go to the system and let's see what's happening. So if I'm now playing them, even though both are now objects, and Wwise could treat them as objects, it is essentially going to, and I'm just playing the one here. So let me just go back to the events here. So now I have the correct transport control. So essentially it's now essentially playing one. The effect was going through the object, and the other object was essentially forced into the main mix. And once again, I can also force audio into the pass-through mix in case that is something I want to do. So this is actually very flexible. There's really nothing much you need to do if you want to add Dolby Atmos to an existing game project. All you need to do is tick the Allow 3D audio box, and then in case you need to force anything into a particular mix, into the main mix, the pass-through mix, or the object mix, essentially you can do that through setting the configuration in the bus settings, right? Now, there's one more thing I need to point out, and that has to do with the spatialization settings in Windows. And if you remember, we had in the device, and let me go back to the device here, in the sound, the voice meter. Here we had selected Windows Sonic. Now, I can also select Dolby Atmos, and once again, this option is available to you if you have installed the Dolby Access app, which is essentially the renderer, the Dolby Atmos renderer within Windows. It is an application that you need to purchase. It costs a little bit of money, not much, but a little bit, and you can download that from the Microsoft Store. But as soon as you have installed that, you have this additional option. So you can now also see how everything sounds within Dolby Atmos. However, there's one caveat. If I'm now selecting Dolby Atmos, so let's just do that. It's going to reset everything. You see that it's now setting the available system audio objects back to 0. Why is that? Well, the reason that is the case is because the implementation of Dolby Access actually has only 16 system audio objects available. And in the settings, the default configuration says that I need a minimum of 32 audio objects. And because Dolby Atmos for headphones does not provide 32 objects, it essentially kind of says, well, I don't have any objects available. You wanted at least 32. I don't have 32, therefore you're not getting any. So in order to make those available, what you need to do is I need to simply kind of reduce the number of objects here. So I can use any number below 16. So let's just use 16, and as soon As I click on 16, it opens up 16 system audio objects. Now, obviously, 16 is a lot less than 111. So if you really want to work with Dolby Atmos, you're limited by the number of audio objects, and you can actually reach 16 audio objects very, very quickly. 111 is difficult to reach, but 16 is actually something that you can reach very, very quickly. So be aware that if you're working with that, if you're switching to Dolby Atmos, you will more likely run into a situation where Wwise is gracefully downgrading your objects into something that it is mixing into the main mix and sending out to the main mix, essentially to the Dolby Atmos bed. This is really everything I wanted to say today. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you got any value out of it, please consider subscribing and click the like button. Apparently, this is something that YouTube wants us to do. If you have any questions or comments, please use the comment section below or join my Discord server. Link is in the description below. And with that being said, see you at the next video.